From the Times Center in New York City, City University Television, in association with the New York Times, presents a Times Talk series with editors and writers of the New York Times. Today's presentation, a conversation with actress and author Helen Mirren, Times interviewer Lynn Hirschberg.
Public.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. That was great on a rainy, cold and rainy and rather British night. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we'll start with the book. What prompted you to write a book?
Well, you know, I think really what prompted me was that someone else wrote a book about me.
Oh, really?
And I was rather cross about him being, you know, getting the money for it. So
when did that come out?
That came out, I don't know, 5 years before I did my book. I had been invited by various publishers over maybe the last 10 or 15 years to write a book, but I resisted it because I wanted to write it myself. That was very important. But I didn't know how to write it. I didn't know what form to take, and I'd always thought it'd be rather nice to write an autobiography as a series of short stories. And you only slowly realize, oh, I see, this is actually an autobiography. And I thought that would be a sort of interesting format. But I didn't think I was a good enough writer. I'm not a professional writer.
You're a very good writer, though.
Well, I didn't know, though, until I started writing that I could write at all. I don't write, you know, I don't write a journal. I don't write anything. I write thank you letters, you know, that's about it.
Well, but in here you say you've started journals like 10, 12, 15 times.
Oh, many times.
Yeah.
I always get a lovely little book, you know, leather bound, gorgeous, nice pen, and I go off to a job, you know, start rehearsals on Dance of Death with Sir Ian McKellen, or go off to do a film with, you know, and I think, no, I'm going to write a diary about this experience. It's going to be so wonderful, and they'll serialize it in the New York Times. And I start off, you know, interesting day today, you know, the coffee was cold. You know, we read the play, interesting. And the next day, well, you know, today we read the play again, and I'm just bored with myself after about 3 days, and I give up. But this was a different thing, and my good friend Sandy suggested that I do a book that's mostly photographs, and that really helped me into writing.
Did you have them in various places? Did you have? You know,
I literally had a big old trunk, wooden trunk. Well, I had 2 trunks. One had my grandfather's papers in that I talk about in the book, but there was this other huge trunk. And I don't keep stuff, but somehow over the years I'd thrown everything into this trunk. And also when my mum died, you know, she had kept stuff like old programs, and a lot of the pictures came from her collection. And when she died, I went and cleared her house out and found it all. And I couldn't bring myself to throw that away, so I did keep that. And then lots of friends, you know, came up with stuff. So it all came together.
Did it take you a long time to write?
No, once I started, I don't know, maybe two or 3 months or something.
Oh, wow.
I just sort of...
That's depressing. She can act, she wins Oscars, and she writes faster than I do.
But Lynn, it's all about me.
That's hard.
No, but you know, for some reason, I didn't sit down and write the book. You know, I was sort of filming, I think, at the time, but I'd have these gaps of time, and I just found it very restful, and I really loved that process, as they call it. I loved it, and it just came out like that. You know, I honestly didn't edit it, and then the editors at the publishing house didn't edit it, really. I did a little bit of jigsawing together, but not a lot.
Well, I think it would be interesting to start with one of the early pictures, which is you as a young girl, and talk a little bit about your childhood. Yes. This is you as a young girl. Now, what's interesting is, A, you're so cute, and B, your upbringing was not the kind of upbringing at all that would anticipate what became of your life. I mean,
no,
you didn't watch television. You didn't. No. You didn't go to the
we
theater.
We didn't have television in my house.
Right.
No. We didn't go to theater. Couldn't afford that. Didn't go to the cinema. Partly because I don't think we could afford it, and partly because. Actually, we did used to go to the Saturday morning pictures, which I forgot to write about. There's a lot of stuff I forgot to write about in the book. But we did go to those sort of... Did you guys have Saturday morning pictures in America?
So they went to like children's,
you know, with
picture.
the kids programs and everyone's shouting and yelling and throwing things, and it's a madhouse in there.
But I love that your first part was playing the Virgin Mary.
Yes, it was. When I was about five, much younger than that, about 5 or 6 years old. Yes.
And you were smitten at that moment, or did you have?
I was smitten by the costume, basically. I remember that costume.
What was the costume?
I had a blue veil with stars in it, and it was. I just absolutely loved it.
And you didn't have to speak.
And I didn't have to speak. I just had to sit there and be adored.
Nothing's changed.
You go, wow, I really like this. This is cool. But I was also very taken with, you know, I grew up in the British equivalent of Coney Island, and you know, it's famous for having the longest pier in the world, much longer than any pier in Coney Island. But anyway, it's a mile and a quarter long, and right out in the Thames estuary was this little theatre at the end of the pier, and I went to see the end of the. My parents took me to see an end of the pier show when I was that was my first real experience of theatre. Was this show at the end of the pier with the comedian and the dancing girls and the singing and everything.
Wow.
And it was called Out of the Blue, I remember that. And the dancing girls came on, and I was just completely mesmerised. Again, it's a costume thing. I remember they had floaty bits of blue and pink stuff that they were sort of whirling around. I thought, oh, that's fantastic. And the comedian made me fall off my chair with laughter. So that was my first thing of, oh, that's really exciting.
And the first movie that you recall seeing was L'Avventura, which is kind of amazing.
Well, yes, I mean, I saw, you know, where I grew up, you had the as we say, the fag ends, you know, the cigarette, you know, dog ends of American movies on their 15th, you know, the end of the very last outpost of distribution. You know, like, oh, the film had come out 5 or 6 or 10 years before, and it was finally being shown. So, you know, it was, you know, American movies, and that was all they had, and they were completely incomprehensible to me. It was also Doris Day and Rock Hudson and stuff like that, and I just had no connection with it. The very few times that I went, I might say I could probably count on the fingers of one hand less than the number of times I went to the cinema when I was sort of young. But I went to work as a waitress in my auntie's bed and breakfast hotel in Brighton, which is a very nice little town on the coast. And they had an art cinema there. And I don't know why I went in there, I've no idea. But I walked past and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And went in, and it was L'Avventura.